All right, get ready to dive deep into the world of indie film because today we're looking at the future of Sundance.
Mm-hmm.
You sent in some really interesting podcast clips.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's a lot of buzz about some big changes coming to the festival.
Yeah, definitely.
Will Sundance even move?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
the place that keeps popping up in these clips
Right.
is Cincinnati.
It's Cincinnati, yeah.
Which, honestly,
Also a contender.
I was like, Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But after looking at the research you sent over, I can see why it's getting so much attention.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot going on there that makes it a really interesting possibility.
So before we get to Cincinnati and why it's suddenly this, indie film hotspot,
Mm-hmm.
let's take a step back for a second and just remind everyone what Sundance is all about.
Yeah, definitely.
Why is it such a big deal in the film world?
Okay, so Sundance, officially the Sundance Film Festival, is kind of the holy grail for independent filmmakers here in the U.S.
Right.
It all started back in 1978.
Okay.
Robert Redford and a bunch of film enthusiasts, they basically wanted to create a space to showcase films that were, maybe a little rough around the edges, a little too daring or different for the typical Hollywood studio system.
So it's where those kind of diamond in the rough films get discovered.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's where directors like Quentin Tarantino got their big break, with Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, wow.
Little Miss Sunshine went from just this quirky indie darling to an Oscar-winning sensation.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Whiplash.
Oh, yeah, that was such a good movie.
Oh my gosh, so intense.
So intense.
But yeah, Sundance gave these films and so many others that platform to connect with audiences who are like, I'm looking for something different, something real.
And for you, I know, as an indie film fanatic, that's what makes Sundance so special, right?
Oh, absolutely. Discovering those hidden gems, those films that you just can't get out of your head.
Yeah, the ones that stay with you.
Oh, yeah.
But here's where things get interesting. Despite all its success, Sundance is facing some serious challenges these days.
Mm-hmm.
Park City, Utah,
Beautiful.
beautiful, yeah.
Gorgeous.
Those mountains, the snow.
Yeah.
It's become a victim of its own charm, in a way.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because it's gorgeous, yes.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly expensive.
So expensive.
And so overcrowded.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine trying to navigate those snowy streets during the festival?
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's a total nightmare.
Especially with everyone there for the festival.
It's packed. It's absolutely packed.
It sounds kind of stressful.
It can be. The cost of actually going to Sundance in Park City has just become too much for a lot of people, filmmakers and just film lovers.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates this kind of exclusivity that honestly goes against, the whole idea of independent cinema.
Yeah, it's supposed to be for everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, we have to think about the rise of online film festivals, too. Sundance has kind of dipped its toes into the virtual world. But some people are saying, could it go fully digital?
That's the question.
I mean, it could happen.
Yeah.
So we've got rising costs, we've got logistical issues, and then we've got, this digital world kind of looming over everything. It makes sense why people are starting to think that Sundance might need to move.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to Cincinnati.
Yeah, to Cincinnati.
I mean, I'll be honest, when I first heard that, I thought it was a joke.
I know.
But the more I look into it,
Yeah.
the more I see why it's being talked about as a serious contender.
It's really interesting what they've got going on there.
So you're telling me that Cincinnati is becoming like this film production hub?
It is. It really is. Films like Bones and All, The Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Oh, wow.
Even Carol, which was nominated for an Oscar.
No way. I had no idea.
Yeah, they were all filmed in Cincinnati.
I always thought those big productions just stuck to the coasts, New York or L.A.
Right. You think that's where it all happens.
Yeah.
But it's not the case anymore.
Interesting.
And here's the thing. Ohio offers these really attractive film tax credits.
Oh, okay.
Which can be huge for productions, especially independent filmmakers working with those, tighter budgets.
So we're talking about potentially saving millions of dollars.
Yes, millions. It's a big incentive.
Now, it's not just about the existing infrastructure in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
There's this real financial incentive for filmmakers to actually go there and make their movies.
Yeah, exactly. It's a smart move for a lot of people.
What about the city's film scene itself?
Oh, it's thriving.
Is there a real indie spirit there?
Absolutely. Cincinnati has a really strong independent film community with festivals like the OTR Film Fest, this Independent Film Festival. They're all showcasing local talent.
Okay.
And they've even had their own success stories come out of it. There's this film called The Private Eye. directed by this Cincinnati native, Jack Cook. It's been making waves on the indie circuit, and it's a great example of how Cincinnati is really nurturing the next generation of filmmakers.
So Cincinnati has the infrastructure, it has the financial incentives, and it has this homegrown passion for filmmaking.
Yeah.
But let's be real, it's not Park City, right?
No.
It doesn't have those mountains, it doesn't have that snow.
Right, it's a completely different vibe.
Yeah.
It really is.
So that's what makes this whole debate so interesting.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've set the stage.
Yeah.
Sundance is facing some tough choices. And Cincinnati is this unexpected contender.
The underdog.
Yeah. But is it really a good move for Sundance?
That's what we need to figure out.
Could swapping the mountains for Midwestern charm actually work?
Yeah, could it?
Let's dive into the heart of this debate.
Let's do it.
I'm ready to hear why some people think leaving Park City would just totally betray Sundance's soul.
Right?
And why others see it as like a necessary evolution.
It's going to be good.
I'm excited.
All right, well, first we have to take a closer look at what makes Sundance, you know?
Yeah.
What makes it so special?
Let's start with the arguments for staying put in Park City.
Okay.
The place where it all began.
All right. I mean, for a lot of film lovers, Park City is Sundance. Like, you get that feeling of, you know, escaping the everyday world, surrounded by those mountains and the snow.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
And just immersing yourself in movies.
Yeah.
It's almost like a pilgrimage, you know, like a chance to just disconnect from everything.
Yeah, all the noise.
And just connect with the heart of filmmaking.
It's like stepping into a totally different world.
Exactly.
Where creativity is everything and anything feels possible.
Yeah, and that feeling of isolation, of being away from the Hollywood machine, that's always been a part of Sundance's identity, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It lets filmmakers and audiences connect with films on a deeper level without all the distractions and pressures of the industry.
So for people who really love that atmosphere, leaving Park City would almost be like, you know, taking away a part of Sundance's soul.
Yeah, that's the argument.
Yeah.
And, you know, it makes sense. Like, tradition and location can be really powerful. But then, on the other hand, some people say that holding onto that tradition too tightly might actually be hurting Sundance.
Oh, interesting.
Remember all those challenges we were talking about? You know, the cost, the logistics, all that stuff is making Sundance less and less accessible, especially for new filmmakers and people who, you know, can't afford to spend thousands of dollars just to go to a film festival.
So it's kind of like Sundance is becoming a victim of its own success almost.
Yeah, a little bit, right.
The more popular it gets, the harder it is to stay true to that original mission, you know, championing those independent voices no matter what their background is or, you know, how much money they have.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a tough spot to be in.
It is. It is. And that's where Cincinnati comes in. Because its affordability and accessibility could really change things for Sundance.
In a good way.
Yeah. I mean, imagine a festival where new filmmakers don't have to choose between paying their rent or going to a screening.
Oh, wow.
Or a festival where anyone can experience the magic of Sundance without going broke.
Yeah.
It's like democratizing the festival experience and opening it up to a much wider range of voices and perspectives.
That's really appealing.
Yeah. Especially if you're passionate about discovering new talent and those hidden gems.
Exactly.
And don't forget about the impact it could have on Cincinnati.
Oh, right.
Hosting Sundance would bring in a ton of tourism, investment, job creation.
Yeah.
It could really help the city grow, not just in the film industry, but in general.
Wow. So it would be like a Sundance-sized economic stimulus package.
Pretty much, yeah.
But what about the cultural side of things? Could Cincinnati really give filmmakers that same level of support and creative energy that they're used to getting at Sundance?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Cincinnati does have a great art scene.
Okay.
And, you know, having Sundance there could really take things to the next level, attract new talent, new investment. You know, like I can almost see this ripple effect.
Yeah.
With Sundance's energy spreading throughout the city, inspiring new collaborations, and creating this thriving hub for independent filmmaking.
That would be awesome.
It would be amazing, but of course some people are worried that Cincinnati just couldn't capture that same Sundance atmosphere. You know, that feeling of escaping the everyday world. They think the city's too commercial, too mainstream.
It is hard to picture feeling isolated in the middle of a bustling city.
Yeah, it's a valid concern, but maybe that's actually part of what makes this so exciting.
Okay, yeah.
It's about challenging the status quo, you know? pushing boundaries and proving that independent film can succeed anywhere.
It doesn't have to be in a remote mountain town.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about it from the perspective of Cincinnati's own filmmaking community.
Right.
Having Sundance right there in their backyard,
Yeah.
that would be an incredible opportunity, you know?
For networking.
Yeah, for networking, for mentorship, for exposure.
Right, right.
It could really elevate the city's film scene.
So it could be a win-win for both Sundance and Cincinnati.
Yeah, potentially. But, you know, there are always risks involved with any big change.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance that Sundance could lose some of its, you know, its mystique, its brand recognition by leaving Park City.
So I guess it all comes down to what's more important, preserving the past or embracing the future.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. And for you, as someone who's, you know, so passionate about indie film, that must be a difficult question to think about.
It really is. It's about finding that balance between honoring Sundance's legacy and making sure it stays relevant in a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to you, our listener. We've presented the arguments, explored all the different angles, but ultimately the decision of whether or not Sundance should move is up to you.
It's subjective.
Yeah, you have to weigh the pros and cons and decide what feels right to you.
Exactly.
Do you value that tradition and isolation, or are you excited about the possibility of more accessibility and a fresh start in a city like Cincinnati?
Right, right.
And here's another thing to think about. What does indie even mean in today's world? You know?
That's a good question.
Is it tied to a specific place?
Yeah.
A certain aesthetic?
Yeah.
Or is it more about a mindset, a commitment to telling stories that challenge conventions and push the boundaries of cinema?
Yeah, that's such a great point.
Yeah.
Maybe indie isn't about where you make films, but why you make them and the spirit you bring to the process.
Exactly.
But before we get too philosophical,
Yeah.
let's bring it back down to earth for a second.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the impact on Sundance, the impact on Cincinnati. But what about the impact on you, the film lover, the festival attendee? Yeah, that's the most important part.
What would it mean for you?
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it's all about the people who love movies and love going to film festivals.
Right. So let's just picture this for a second.
Okay.
Sundance actually does move to Cincinnati.
Right.
How would that change your experience at the festival?
Well, I think for one thing, your bank account would probably be a lot happier.
Oh, yeah.
Cincinnati is way more affordable than Park City.
Yeah.
Like for hotels, food, just the overall cost of living.
So instead of spending, you know, hundreds of dollars a night for a hotel room,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
you could probably find a decent Airbnb
Oh yeah, for
for
sure.
a fraction of the price.
A fraction. Yeah, you'd have so much more money to actually enjoy the festival, you know? Buy some extra popcorn, maybe get some cool merch.
I love the merch.
Oh yeah.
And Cincinnati's known for its food, too, right?
Oh yeah, their food scene is amazing.
So you could have these great meals without spending a ton of money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the cost, you know?
Yeah. Cincinnati's also a lot easier to get around than Park City, especially if you're not a fan of driving in the snow.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Less time fighting traffic, more time watching movies.
Exactly. It makes the whole experience more relaxed.
Oh, that's nice.
And, you know, think about all the other stuff you could do in Cincinnati.
Oh yeah, besides the movies.
Yeah, they have this really cool arts and culture scene.
Okay.
Museums, theaters, music venues.
So you could spend the day watching films and then go catch a live show at night.
Exactly. It's like a cultural feast.
I love that.
Oh, and speaking of feasts, have you ever tried Cincinnati chili?
Wait, is that the one with the spaghetti and the cheese?
Yeah, that's the one.
I've heard things.
It's definitely unique.
Okay.
But that's part of the fun of exploring a new city, right?
True.
You get to step outside your comfort zone and try new things.
I like that.
All right, so let's switch gears for a minute.
Okay.
Let's say you're a filmmaker and you've always dreamed of premiering your film at Sundance.
Okay.
How would this move to Cincinnati affect that dream?
Yeah, good question.
Well, as we were saying before, the lower costs and the fact that it's easier to get to Cincinnati could be huge for new filmmakers.
Okay.
It would really level the playing field.
Yeah.
Let talent shine through no matter what your budget is or where you come from.
So you wouldn't have to choose between making your film and attending the festival that could help you launch your career.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big deal.
It is. And being in Cincinnati, a city that's already becoming a center for film production, could open up all kinds of new opportunities for collaboration and networking.
So it's like Sundance would become less of an exclusive club and more of a launch pad for the next generation of filmmakers.
Yeah, I like that way of putting it.
So what does it all mean? Should Sundance ditch the mountains and head for Cincinnati?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There are good arguments on both sides.
Right.
It comes down to what we want from a film festival, you know.
Hmm.
Is it about exclusivity and tradition?
Yeah.
Or is it about accessibility and innovation and being open to change?
Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, maybe the magic of Sundance is that it can evolve and adapt to a changing world without losing sight of its original mission.
Right, to support independent voices.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, Cincinnati could be the key to that evolution.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the history, the challenges, the arguments for and against a move, and all the possibilities that lie ahead.
It's been a great discussion.
It really has. So now it's your turn, dear listener.
Yes.
You've heard the evidence. Now it's time to weigh it all and decide, could a Midwestern city be the unexpected hero that helps Sundance reach new heights?
And maybe even more importantly, what does the future of independent film look like to you?
Where do you see it thriving and evolving and captivating audiences in the years to come?
It's something to think about for sure.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of Sundance.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time for another adventure in knowledge.